Jim Winston, President and CEO of the National Association of Black-Owned Broadcasters, NABOB. Welcome to the Chavis Chronicles.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. I'm always pleased to have a chance to interact with you, sir.
Thank you. Man, you have such an illustrious career. I want to start at the beginning. You were born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Correct.
Great one-time steel town.
Right, exactly.
Still a great city.
Yes.
And you went to where? The University of Pennsylvania?
University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia for undergraduate school, where I got a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering.
So how do you wind up at Harvard Law School?
Well, about 2 years into my engineering degree, I realized this was a big mistake. And so I figured out the easiest thing for me to do was to finish up that degree and then do something else. So when I was graduating from engineering school, there were 3 things you could do with a bachelor's degree in engineering other than engineering. One was you could go to med school, you could go to urban design school, or you could go to law school. Med school was out because I didn't want to see any blood. So urban design school seemed too narrow. Law, I knew, had a lot of opportunities for a career advancement. And so that's how I ended up in law school. It was my roommate who was applying to Harvard at the same time who said he was applying. I said, Harvard, man, that's too hard to get into. He said, well, I'm applying. I said, well, if you're applying, I'm applying. And we both got in. And
after finishing law school, you wound up with the Federal Communications Commission.
Yes.
The FCC.
That was an interesting experience. I was working in Washington, and I got a call from a friend of mine who was working at the FCC. He was working in the chairman's office. And he said, Commissioner Lee would like to interview you for a job in his office as a legal advisor. And I said, Commissioner Robert E. Lee, the Republican? And he said, yes. I said, does he know the important fact about me? And he said, yes, and he wants to interview you. So I went in with great trepidation. I sat down. The first thing the commissioner said is, I want you to know I have nothing to do with that Confederate general. I'm named after Robert Emmet, who was an Irish revolutionary.
All right.
And from
so
that—
there's more than one Robert E. Lee.
Exactly. And he said, I'm an Irish Catholic from Chicago. And from that point, we had a great conversation. He offered me the job on the spot. I accepted on the spot. I had 2 years working for him. That was 2 of the best years of my career.
Black radio was the drumbeat of the Black community. You've seen the high points and the low points of Black-owned radio. Give us an assessment, Jim Winston. What's happening with Black radio in America today? All
right. Well, as you said, there was a time when Black radio was the primary source of news and information, music development, everything in the Black community. And what we have found over the years, we've got new delivery systems, we've got the internet, we've got mobile devices, we've got a lot of things that are providing information and entertainment to the Black community.
Right, social media.
Social media, and all those dynamics are changing. However, the core principle of radio still remains because it is a professional medium, because you get professional people working in it, in news, in music, and whatever. You're going to get a higher quality. You know, in the internet, everybody's their own everything. You're your own editor, you're your own producer, you're your own everything. And people, the vast majority of people aren't trained in those things. So what you find is that people still rotate back to Black-owned radio when they want to learn what's really going on. So we still find ourselves that we are still the primary and principal voice for the Black community in the places where we are operating even today. Now, the internet makes interesting changes in that business because you can't have any business in the entertainment or information arena and not be on the internet in some fashion. You've got to have apps, you've got to have mobile devices, you've got to have all the things that the audience as a whole wants to connect with. And so our stations are doing that. But the simple truth is that the advertising revenues that any individual station can get from those internet-related services are much, much lower than what you get as a broadcaster. So you have to be there because your audience is there, but your core business is and continues to be broadcast radio or broadcast television.
Tell us how regulation today affects whether or not there's sustainability in Black-owned radio.
Well, let me go back a little bit to the founding of NABOB. NABOB was founded in 1976, and it was founded because a small group of Black owners realized that they all had the same problem, and that there were two fundamental problems. One, there weren't enough of them, and two, advertisers didn't know what to do with them. And so NABOB was founded to address those two issues, to increase the number of African Americans who own radio and television stations, and to educate the advertising community as to why they should do business with us. So at the same time, the Federal Communications Commission was under a mandate from the courts to begin to address minority ownership. From the courts and from Congress, they said, you need to have a policy to promote minority ownership. In 1978, the FCC created its minority ownership policy, which had several smaller policies underneath it, but there was one primary policy, which was called the tax certificate policy. The tax certificate policy had the greatest impact on increasing minority ownership across the board ever, because the policy said, if you are the owner of a radio or television station and you sell that station to a company owned and controlled by minorities, by 51% control of minorities, you get to defer the capital gains tax on that sale. So for example, I've got—
For how long is the deferral?
And the deferral was 2 years if you just took the money and put it in your pocket. If you took the money and reinvested in another broadcast property, you deferred the capital gains tax until you sold that property. So you could defer the tax for 20 years, 30 years, the rest of your life. So you can see, I can see on your face, you see what that means. So if I've got a station—
That was an incentive.
I've got a station I bought for $1 million. I sell it to a minority-owned company for $5 million. I've got a $4 million capital gain. I owe the federal government $1 million in taxes, 25% tax on that sale. If I can defer that $1 million tax payment, I'm a happy man. So what happened? From never being advised when the good stations were for sale, our owners would pick up the trade press and see a station down the street got sold, and they'd like, I didn't even know it was for sale, because all that was going on through an old boy network. Once the tax certificate policy came, ring, ring, hey, you want to buy my station? Suddenly people were offering stations to us that we would never have seen. So
they can get the tax break.
So they can get the tax break. You know, it wasn't altruism. It was because they were going to get a huge tax break. As a result, in 1978, we had 37 Black-owned radio stations, 1 Black-owned television station. When the policy was repealed by Congress in 1995, we had 250 Black-owned radio stations and 25 Black-owned television stations, primarily because of the tax certificate policy.
That's a big growth.
That was a huge growth, and it's interesting because it's is the glass half full or glass half empty? Because at that point, at our highest point, we had 250 radio stations out of 10,000 in the United States. So we were still like 2%. We had 25 television stations out of 1,100 television stations in the United States. We were at just under 2%. So in spite of that huge growth, we were still a fraction of what we should be based upon our population in the country.
What are the prospects today for Black-owned radio or Black-owned television?
Well, as I said, the tax certificate policy was a critical thing that made the difference between after 1995, when it was repealed by the Republican Congress. We saw our numbers continue to fall off in radio, and they're still falling. They've been stabilizing the last few years, but we're down. We were at 250 radio stations in 1995. We're at 180 now. So our numbers have fallen off over the years as a result of that. So what do we need? We need reinstatement of the tax certificate policy. We are very pleased that Congressman G.K. Butterfield from North Carolina introduced a reinstatement of the tax certificate policy in the last Congress. He got it approved out of committee in the last Congress, but he was not able to get it passed. So he's reintroduced it again in this Congress, and we were very happy to be working with him.
G.K. Butterfield is a stalwart, and I'm glad to know that he's put in public policy to enhance opportunities for Black-owned radio and Black-owned television.
Yeah, Congressman Butterfield has been really active on this issue. That, sometimes members of Congress introduce a bill because they want to say they did. He's been actively fighting on behalf of this bill for years now, and we're very, very pleased to be working with him on it.
From the perspective of commercial radio, how do we get more young people in the pipeline so that they could be ready to take the reins of the Black radio station?
I'm glad you said that, because NABOB has a foundation called the NABOB Foundation, runs something called the Media Sales Institute. It's a 10-day intensive program that we give to recent college graduates, career changers, or ex-military. We invite them to apply to the program, and we take about between 16 and 20 candidates every year. We give them a 10-day on-campus intensive experience in sales, in radio station sales, television station sales, cable television sales, digital sales, print sales. And the program gives them, each one of the candidates is given a real-life advertising pitch that they have to present at the end of the 10-day program. The pitch is made to actual business recruiters who come in and watch these students do a sales presentation. At the end of that, the candidates are then given an opportunity to be invited to these companies to be having formal interviews. Every year, we have major success. The top candidates from the program will get 7 or 8 interview opportunities for these companies. We have 85 to 90% of our candidates get full-time job offers within the 90 days after the program is over.
How do you apply for the program?
There's a website. It's the MSI.net, and people can and if they don't remember that, www.nabob.org. You can come to our website, and it connects to the NABOB Foundation, and you can get there that way. But anybody who is a young person looking for a career in radio or television or cable television sales, print sales, digital sales, it's a guaranteed program with 20-year success record.
NABOB.org.
NABOB.org, and you can get the information right there.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Jim Winston, the president and CEO of the National Association of Black-owned Broadcasters.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Major funding for the Chavis Chronicles is provided by Reynolds American, dedicated to building a better tomorrow for our employees and communities. Reynolds stands against racism and discrimination in all forms and is committed to building a more diverse and inclusive workplace. American Petroleum Institute. Through the core elements of API's Energy Excellence Program, our members are committed to accelerating safety, environmental, and sustainability progress throughout the natural gas and oil industry in the U.S. and around the world. You can learn more at api.org/API Energy Excellence. Over the next 10 years, Comcast is committing $1 billion to reach 50 million low-income Americans with the tools and resources they need to be ready for anything.